All right, welcome back here in Times Square. A couple of things, some headlines crossing. First of all, from one of the Fed governors. This is Governor Poole saying, again, making cautious comments about a recession, saying citing low probability to recession, and also fairly beneficent comments as it pertains to inflation. Inflation being under control, and recession probability being low. Moving on to the other story of the day, AIG. They were murdered this morning, biggest one-day loss in 20 years' time. Talk with someone familiar with the board of directors there. One of the things they are not considering is the job of the boss there. So the CEO job at AIG is not at this point in play, according to a couple of folks now familiar with the board of directors at AIG. So that job for now is intact. To the technicals we go in the stock market, and a new guest for us here, Quint Tatro, shares a house with Minionville. Is there a bald policy at Minionville? Because I know you're at Minionville. Jeff's at Minionville. Is that the only one? Because they don't want me. No, they never ask me. They never offer me anything.
Bald
nothing.
guys who can write.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what it is.
That's what Minionville is.
Bald guys who can trade, write, that you're in.
Bald guys, if you can write and trade, you're good to go. All right, let's just start with the broad stock market. I know technical analysis, obviously, your point of view. What are we looking at in your
We're looking at the weekly S&P here, going back through 2003. And you can see here, and everybody and their brothers already pointed it out on this show and other shows, that you've got the trend line here. We're just kind of hanging right on that line right there. And that's the area that everybody's watching and so concerned with. We're kind of in no man's land, and that's where we need to be just kind of doing nothing right now to wait and see what this does, you know, whether this goes lower, higher, and whether we keep this trend intact.
And let's look at the daily chart of the S&P 500 second. This is a 5-year chart. If you didn't see it, 03, this is a daily.
This is a daily. This is obviously the big lows here that we just had a few weeks ago. Now we're coming back. We're kind of retesting that level. Everyone is talking about we need to retest the January lows. We need to hit those lows. Right now, we possibly may have a little lower high, or I'm sorry, a higher low going here.
Which means what? That's a good, bad?
Yeah, it's kind of a guardrail. It's, you know, technicals are guidelines. That's all they are, really, and a lot of people don't really understand what they are. This just puts human emotion on paper. This is where everybody just kind of freaked out.
But do you interpret this higher low as a good thing or a bad thing?
So far, it's a positive. Okay. Remember, they're just kind of guidelines, and so right now, I'm a little positive. We have another day here that this doesn't include, one extra day, and that's, again, a positive that we're not yet breaking low.
Let's talk about the financials, specifically the S&Ls. What's on your mind?
Well, I think it's fascinating. Everyone's talking about the big banks, and you got to kind of dig a little bit to see what else is out there, what else is painting a picture. I like the savings and loans. I think they're fascinating. Nobody's really talking about them or the regionals. I see they already put in this double bottom here that everybody's talking about.
This is here and
That's
here.
Right, exactly. Now they're kind of coming up and they're sort of consolidating this move. Very quiet-like, really doing nothing. They're not getting a lot of press. They're not getting a lot of attention. They look like they could be potentially being prepared to make another move higher.
And then you have some specific names that are basically a part of this index.
That's exactly right. Let's take a look at two names that I kind of wanted to show here today.
The first one would be People's United Financial.
That's right.
I almost, for a second there, I felt like we were playing Wheel of Fortune. We were waiting for the thing to turn. It was kind of exciting.
Right. Well, we've got here this same sort of format, except interestingly, this might have put in the first low back in 2007. We then retested that, and we're sort of kind of consolidating the recent move here, possibly getting ready to break out. None of the other real financials, the big guys, are here yet. But the S&Ls, the old traditional banks, you know, that make their money on the yield curve, they could be there and saying that things are getting better in the banking industry.
And they're speaking tomorrow at Goldman Sachs conference, I think, at 3:30, so they might be able to say some things that might back this up. You want to play this on technicals? I think Quint's right on with this one.
All right, and then give me one more quick and dirty.
Yeah, the last one we've got here, if we, Hudson City. I mean, these guys never got the memo that the market had sold off. These things, they're trading around all-time highs here. They clearly already broke out of one channel, and they're consolidating, possibly getting ready to break out another. This isn't just a technical story either. You can dig into the fundos here, and you can see these things are making money. I mean, you know, Hudson's done sequential growth year over year. EPS and revenues are increasing. So it's not just a technical play, but the technicals are attractive.
Quint, a true pleasure to make the acquaintance. Well done. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Quint Tatro, Minionville. We'll take a break. We're back with the final trade here right after this. Welcome back. Nice to see you. How you doing? Come on in here. Our friend Quint Tatro back with us. A little Chartology for you. Quint, it's a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here.
I got to tell you, it's been hard to find a technician who's come by and stood with me here at this lovely plasma in Times Square and said a darn good thing about the stock market.
Well, the only thing that's gotten better here is my wardrobe, because nothing much has changed since I was here last time. I mean, there's no question. We're going to take a look first and foremost with the S&P longer-term chart. This is a weekly going back 5 years. Last time I was here, I talked about the consolidation area. We needed to see some resolution. We've got our resolution, Dylan. We're going lower in the short term, you can take a look here at a daily chart that I brought with me. There it is.
There you go.
We've got the daily here. We possibly could be getting this kind of short-term double bottom, but I'm going to tell you something. Folks at home need to realize that the weekly chart we just looked at, the longer term is now down, and that is confirmed. So if we do have a reflex rally, if we, let's say, break these January intraday lows, we move higher, it's an opportunity to sell stocks. Lighten up.
So again, as somebody who covered his emerging markets positions today, for instance, Tim, and when you hear a technician bearish, as our friend Quint here is, how do you take that?
Well, it's definitely not the end of the road for emerging markets or the S&P on a bounce, but my feeling is that there will be a short-term bounce. And again, I'm net long emerging markets, but the directionality in my book says I want to cover them here.
Understood. Procter & Gamble, a name you think that has some suffering coming?
Well, you know, everybody asks me, so what do you think, Quint? What do you think about the market? What do you think about the economy?
It's supposed to be a defensive name, by the way.
Well, and that's what I say. My turn to them.
Multinational.
That's exactly right. What I say to them, this ain't your daddy's recession. I mean, that's what I say. And the reason is because people flock to these recession-proof names, right? Consumer staples. But these charts here, first and foremost, Procter & Gamble, you can see looks much like the S&P did last time I was here. This is a couple-year chart, weekly. It's kind of dancing along this line here. Looks like it could be going lower. And I think it's a function, you know, it can be debated, but I think it's a function of the higher commodity prices. I mean, we've got, you know, grains, wheats, et cetera, that are factoring in here. Margins are going to get squeezed. Exactly. So,
yeah, no, stay with me for one second.
No problem.
I want to take a break. Not to take a break, but I just want you to just relax, enjoy yourself taking the scenery here in Times Square. Charlie Gasparino on the beat on the Spitzer front. What do you have for us, Charlie?
Piano.
Yeah, Charlie, we will talk to you soon. I'm sure of that. Quint, still with us?
Sure.
Your last name, what do you got here?
Well,
finish with Procter.
Sure, and we'll go on. We'll take a look here at, I think it's, Campbell's Soup. This is an example here. Procter was dancing this line. Campbell's Soup broke through this line. So just an example how the recessionary names may not be working. But I want to go forward with one thing, because you said bearish. There's opportunity out there, but people have to embrace what's working. I got two last remaining charts I'll hit real quick. The first one I think is Chesapeake, if we can get here. This is a multi-year base. Now, you guys have been on this nat gas trade like crazy. Chesapeake has just now broken out. It's a weekly chart. If you take a step back, you can see this has a monster potential run in its future. I think this is to be bought on any major dip, just like we saw today. And then the last but not least, another name you guys have been all over is Joy Global. I mean, these guys have fantastic numbers. I think there's 340 is their estimate for 2008. It's 27% earnings growth, and it's a forward PE of like 17. But you can take a look. It's very much like the Chesapeake chart, a multi-year base. And if this puppy breaks above, it's a buy. So you've got to embrace the names that are working.
Understood. Listen, a pleasure. Quint, thanks for spending some time with us. We'll see you sooner rather than later. We're back here with the final trade, the traders and myself here right after this.